Oh, son, look at my hands. My father's hands are marked with scars, and he's missing the tip of a fingertip. I'm in high school and have a shot at getting into a good college, but I'm sleepwalking through classes, and I want to drop out. Look, son, I work with these shoes every day. I fix these shoes every day. I work with these chemicals every day so that you can go to school. I don't know how to do anything else, but you gotta go to class. And so I start going to class, and in April, when the acceptance letter from Yale comes, he beams with pride. And it matters to me because I want to reach that bar that he's set for me. But, you know, there's things that we say we care about, and then there's what we actually do. See, because I hadn't yet been exposed to video games. It was about October of my first year at school, and I saw this group of people around my dorm mate Jimmy's room. They were huddled around his Macintosh. They weren't even called Macs yet. And Jimmy was playing Tetris, and the crowd was transfixed by the falling shapes. This was like the world's most pathetic spectator sport. But, I mean, they were really into it, and Jimmy was having a great time, and, you know, he eventually lost, but he played great. And I knew what I had to do. Can I play? Oh, sure. You just got to see if you can beat my high score of 400,000 points. And I went to work. I mean, the shapes were falling, but I could make them fit together. I was good at Tetris, and the crowd cheered every clever move I made. I was hooked. And so I started to go to Jimmy's every day, calluses on my hands marking hours of practice. And then one day, it was in December, that it happened. I should have been studying for finals, but I had walked over to Jimmy's to, again, play Tetris. And that day, all the shapes fit together. Now, the thing about Tetris, the game never really changes. It just gets faster and faster until you lose. But I'd hit 300,000 points, and I was going strong. I was within shot of Jimmy's mark. And a group started to form around me, and my hands started to sweat. And I was nervous. But, you know, I made a mistake, and then I recovered with a brilliant use of one of the long pieces, and passed Jimmy's mark. And at 500,000 points, the crowd clapped politely. At 600,000 points, they started cheering wildly. But I kept going, and then something that had happened that had never happened before. The game reached terminal velocity. It actually couldn't go any faster. It was like I was watching the pieces rain down, but I could see them in slow motion like out of shape Neo from The Matrix. And then, after 100 minutes of playing, I hit 1,000,000 points. And kind of like the Buddha, I felt like I had reached enlightenment and I could just walk away from everything. Because, look, I was a legend. I had set the record, and it was never going to be beaten. And people were so happy. They were hopped up on the stress of finals and too much caffeine, and everybody was cheering except for Jimmy, whose mark I had broken. So on that high note, I went home for the holidays. When I got back in January, I saw Jimmy with a smirk on his face. So I took my computer to a neighbor's house, and he's got a 7-year-old kid. I started to get a sinking feeling in my stomach. What do you mean? Maybe we should just boot up the computer. After about 3 minutes, I see on the Tetris screen, number 1, and it's not my name. The neighbor's 7-year-old kid hadn't just beaten my mark, he had demolished it. 4,000,000 points. A legend no more. I just wasted the first semester at school playing a game. I did eventually get it together, just enough to get by, and got a job in London, which, with admirable consistency, I proceeded to half-ass in the same way I'd done everything else. And continued that way until about 11 years after my Pyrrhic Tetris victory, and I got a call from my dad. And we talked a lot, but this call was different, and I had to fly home to Minnesota immediately. My stepmom had warned me, but it was still a shock to see him. His strong shoe repairman's arms were now gaunt. His skin was gray. His illness, Cancer, the pancreas that afflicts people that work with chemicals, was moving quickly. He couldn't even walk. I had to help him that day to take a shower, and after I'd helped him put his clothes back on, I had to step outside, but it had just been a few minutes, but when I got back in, he was on the floor, sprawled out, gasping for air. I had just tried to put on my own shoes. It was hard work, and it didn't get any easier over the next couple of weeks. So when I got a call from a childhood friend, Tim, offering me to come over to his house to see a few friends, I checked in with my stepmom, and I said I'd be there. It wasn't a big gathering. It was just 4 guys, some beers, and a PlayStation. We talked sports and drank. Hey, you think that Randy Moss, you think he's a good teammate? Or do you think he's a locker room cancer? But then Tim put on a game, Tetris. Look, man, we could play in the split screen mode so I can beat your ass directly. So we started playing, and Tim was good. Oh, man, you can't keep up with me. But I was better. Look, man, baby, you better go back to watching America's Top Model because you can't play Tetris with a man. Yes, we were talking shit about our Tetris abilities. The game continued, and we were about 30 minutes in. This was an epic duel. My phone started to ring in my pocket, but I didn't pay any attention to it because I just wanted to play the game. The guys were getting restless because they were bored of watching us play. Oh, geez, can't one of you guys just quit and lose now? But there was no way that was going to happen. My phone buzzed again, and I started to get distracted, and the blocks were piling up. And the blocks were piling up on Tim's screen, and this was going to go down to the wire. And then finally, game over flashed on the screen. Mine, not his. Tim had won. Better luck next time, loser. Here's a beer. I drank the beer and fished my phone out of the pocket. 17 texts, 6 voicemails. I shotgunned the beer while I opened them up. They were all from my stepmom. Come home now. Where are you? And then finally, just one word, now. I was drunk, but I stumbled home as quickly as you could stumble, all the while wondering whether my father was dead already. All the time wondering if he'd passed away while I was drinking Schlitz and trying to fit shapes into others' shapes. When I arrived, he was still there, in a makeshift bed in the living room, surrounded by the rest of his family. His breathing was labored and awful. My stepmom looked at me and then looked at him and said, John, you can go now. Your son's here. He's here. I held his hand for another hour before he died. But I hated myself that night. I don't think there's silver linings of a lot of things. And I don't think that fate communicates itself usually in obvious metaphors. But holy shit, I stopped playing games with my life after that night. And ever since, I've tried to put people in front of me instead of screens, trying to meet the only bar that my father ever set for me. Thank you.